either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
Welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Weird. I'm Nico.
And I'm Chris.
And Chris, I bet you in this episode I can say meow 10 times.
I bet you actually say meow 11 times.
Starting right meow. So today we unintentionally planned something happy for once.
Yeah.
With all the crap that's going on and the little darker, depressing movies we've been doing lately.
Yeah, which is hilarious because part of the reason we originally picked this, which we plan what we're going to see way ahead of time most of the time. And the original reason we picked this was because we realized that the two of us have a very standard, dark sense of humor. Thus, most of the movies that we love and want to talk about tend to either be grungy, grimy, dark, horror, something little less standard happy.
Or something super obscure that no one's ever heard about.
Exactly. And so we were talking about movies that other people love that we typically don't like. And the comedy world is a broad world. And we've talked a bit about how we have very different senses of comedy. And most people do. Yeah. And I would say that Super Troopers is the pinnacle of not my type of humor.
Yeah, well, so that's the movie we're covering is Super Troopers, in case people didn't catch on. I actually had never seen Super Troopers in its entirety until we decided to do this.
I think a lot of people haven't seen Super Troopers in its entirety.
I've only seen bits and pieces of it, and that's partly because it was on FX all the freaking time.
It reran a lot.
I think it's still rerunning, probably.
Oh, probably.
But yeah, so like I'd only seen the very beginning, which I didn't realize was the beginning of the movie. And then I'd seen, I think honestly the only other scene I'd seen was the cops getting locked. The cops getting locked in the back of the cruiser.
Yeah.
Those are like the only two parts I'd seen in the entire movie.
And Brian and I had both seen Super Troopers at some point, but we didn't actively remember watching it. And Brian, before we started, in fact, for almost a full week when I announced that we needed to watch this movie, and since he can't go anywhere and was forced to watch this with me, I had a week of him being very skeptical, let's say, about the quality of this movie, which did surprise me because one of his favorite actors is Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
And I always kind of felt that Super Troopers was in the same vein of comedy as a lot of Will Ferrell's humor. Not all of it, but they share similar lanes down a road.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do know the comedy troupe that's behind this is Broken Lizard. Yeah. And I watched actually quite a few interviews with Jay Chandrasekhar?
Yeah, let's go with that.
He even had, like, two people messed up his name in the interviews I was watching. He's like, I don't blame you. I have a 12-letter name. I have one of the longest names in Hollywood. I don't blame anyone for mispronouncing it. And they're like, oh, we thought it was long. It's like, no, there's another Indian guy who's got, like, it's the same name, but it's got, like, ED at the end or DE at the end. And he's like, he has the longest name.
By 2 letters.
By 2 letters.
Nice.
But yeah, but he mentioned in an interview that he wanted Broken Lizard to be the American Monty Python.
Yeah, and honestly, I can kind of see how they managed to do that. Because part of the reason why people migrate so strongly towards Monty Python is because it's a British humor, but it's not quite as dry as some of the other British humors. It's a lot more slapstick.
It's not like In Bruges.
Yeah. Or Ask Jeeves, which was, I believe it starred Stephen Fry, who I love dearly.
I don't know that movie.
All About Jeeves? I don't remember. But
something about Jeeves.
Well, and especially because a lot of British comedy tends to be one person or two people comedy act for most of the movie. Mr. Bean's a good example. Yeah, there's other characters in his skits or in his movies or plays, but the comedy revolves solely around Mr. Bean.
Mm-hmm.
American comedy tends to be large group based, and so I can see why Monty Python bridged that gap a little bit easier, because while it's not a huge group, they all play the same like roles, and then they play all the background characters on top of that.
Yeah, unlike comparatively Seinfeld, which is one of America's biggest. There's always what's the term? It's called the straight man.
Yes. The one character who's always a little out of the loop. The one who's the normal person. Normal enough.
And they're always the one who doesn't necessarily do wrong, even though they're wrong constantly.
Yeah.
They're the one who, in their mind, is right.
Frasier.
I don't remember a lot of Frasier.
You wouldn't like Frasier.
I know. See, I know about Frasier and I know I watched it.
Oh, I think everyone was forced to watch it at some point.
Well, I had AFN when I was living in Germany.
Yeah, no.
And we had very little programming.
I could see Frasier being well liked in Germany. It
was armed forces.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
But Super Troopers has the troop gag, where it's a group of people, and it's mostly this group where all of the comedy's centered around, similar to Monty Python. But instead of being dry, slapstick, or witty humor, most of this is what I call bro humor.
Yes.
Which is part of the reason why we pick Super Trooper, is because it's not our standard go-to for a comedy film, even if I'm pushing myself for a comedy film.
Yeah.
I'm not usually one who likes pranks. I get secondhand embarrassment really badly, so I don't usually like ones that are college boy themed, where American Pie is a good example.
Yeah.
I'm not a super fan of dick jokes.
No. I mean, and on the other hand, I'm not a huge fan of pranks either. I'm very skeptical of it and stuff. So, I mean, a lot of the antics to me are very over the top. And I think that's my biggest issue with comedy is I'll watch an action movie, I'll watch a zombie, I'll watch a horror movie. Yeah, over the top. But it's a different kind of over the top that I don't particularly find comedic for the most part. And
I will say, especially since I hadn't seen Super Troopers in a long time, I did go in with very, very low expectations. Is this my favorite movie of all time? No. But I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
It was definitely a bro movie. It was less of a bro movie than I remembered it being.
Yes, and I think that's where this movie definitely stands out.
Yes. So to celebrate, what are we drinking today?
Well, I rated my tea stash, and luckily we have a tea that I'm not a super huge fan of, but it fits. Mm-hmm. It's Vermont Maple Ginger.
Ah, perfect. Cheers.
It's a bit too sweet for me.
I like it, but I can see why it made it this long in your cupboard.
It's been at the office for months.
For a while?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, before we get really into it, I kind of want to talk about some of the production of this movie, because this movie almost didn't get made.
It didn't get made a couple times.
A few times. Jay mentioned that he's written like 20, 40 some scripts, and only 8 of them have ever been made.
Yeah.
And
then, on top of that, he rewrote Super Troopers itself, got rewritten, almost 20 times?
Probably. Well, that's the thing, too, is that they work as a group, too.
Yeah, so that does make it a little hard to keep track of drafts and edits. Mm-hmm. Especially since it sounded like every time they rewrote it, they added another joke.
Yeah, they had to remove stuff. Like, the first person that they pitched the movie to was Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, okay. That's that's some money to throw at.
Yeah, well, their first movie that they had released has become a cult comedy. Granted, I haven't seen it yet. It's called Puddle Cruiser.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And they screened it. He was gonna originally invest in it. It was doing well. They had a test screening of it for college students, and they were like, oh, they were laughing, they were enjoying it, and then Harvey Weinstein wasn't there, and so they had to tuck it away they had to re-show it again. And then the moment these high school kids or these college art students realized who was in the room, they're like, I didn't like the framing of that scene. I didn't like this. And it's like they were trying to get in with Weinstein.
They were trying to be artsy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so he got annoyed with it, and he's like, I'm going to have to pass on it, but, your next movie, I'll buy it. I like you guys.
Cool.
And so they sent him Super Troopers, and he's like, to be honest, I'm sure it's funny, but most stuff that comes my way, I don't know if it's funny or not.
Which is fair, because especially reading movie scripts, it's very different than actually seeing the production.
Oh yeah, like I was reading Inglourious Bastards on a flight to go out to Denver for my buddy's bachelor party. Yeah. And there's a line in it that didn't make the movie, and for good reason. It doesn't. Yeah. There's no one to really say it. But it's the scene where Stieglitz, the German guy, is sharpening his knife.
Yes.
And then it flashes back to him, like, doing his, like, getting tortured. There's the dynamic, some Italian style movie behind it. And then there's a line under that I just love. It comes out of nowhere. Stieglitz is fucking weird.
Yeah, there's no one to say that line.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's just, I love it because it feels... It's perfect, but it's out of place in an actual movie.
Yeah. And honestly, like, that's part of the forever battle of written versus movie, is one cannot turn into the other perfectly almost 99% of the time.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, especially for Super Troopers, where a lot of this is visual-based comedy as opposed to back-and-forth witty banter, it would be really hard to read the script and be like, okay, so you shoved a guy in a closet full of shaving gel, but that you don't see that.
Yeah,
you see it like
no, exactly.
Yeah,
and that's the thing they mentioned too in the writing, is that they don't do a lot of ad-libbing. Like everything is written in what they want. They might do one or two lines here and there, but for the most part, what they write is what they write. Which
honestly, I think for Super Troopers ended up working out really well, which is usually the opposite of how comedy works. You usually rely on someone's comedic genius to kind of help fill in some pieces, or to help make the movie a memorable piece.
Oh yeah.
But Super Troopers very carefully towed a lot of lines in this movie, and because they were thoughtful and wrote out all of the stuff ahead of time, I think that gave them a chance to edit things down so that way this movie, while definitely aiming for a time genre, granted not the one it came out in, but it manages to tiptoe around a lot of problems that a lot of comedy movies have, where it ends up dating itself, or it ends up leaving a bad taste in your mouth after you're done watching it.
Yeah.
Because, maybe at the time that joke was funny, but now, we wouldn't make that joke. Yeah. This one manages to skirt its way around those problems fairly well.
It's like how I feel the most recent Sherlock movie, the Will Ferrell one's gonna turn out.
That
like,
one.
There's parts of it that are funny. I know you haven't watched it because you don't like Will Ferrell.
I hate Will Ferrell, but I am at a struggle as I have consumed every single piece of Sherlock Holmes media that I can get a hands on, including not original pieces. One of my hobbies is to watch the old black and white TV show, but I hate Will Ferrell.
Yeah, well,
I will get around to it eventually. I'm sure Brian will think it's hilarious, and that's how I'll end up watching it.
I'll make you guys watch it. I own it.
There you go. I'll watch it on a dude night.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's the thing about their comedy too, is like it is so adaptable. I feel this movie it almost doesn't feel, unless you know like the Cars and whatnot. It doesn't have. I mean, it feels like the 90s, 2000s.
Yeah.
But it's not like super 90s jean suits.
No, yeah. They do make a good play on the jean suit part at some point, because, and this is something that, like, I'm not quite north enough to get some of these references, which is fun, but I guess wearing all jeans is a Canadian thing? I don't know. I haven't been to Canada. I don't know if that is at one point a thing, but it's funny.
I don't remember Alaska like that at all.
I mean... maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But, anywho, back to the creation of this movie.
Yes.
There was actually one draft where they pitched it to the Farrelly brothers, who thought it was going to be better if it was set in the 70s. And so they wrote a script labeled Super Troopers 76.
And you know what? I could see that. This movie definitely thrived from some of the stuff that was based in the 70s, but I think because it's not trying to be in the 70s, it's even funnier, because the mustaches, which are very 70s cop feel, the mustaches look stupid because it's not the 70s.
Yeah.
And thus they're even better.
Oh, yeah. It's that line between porn star stash and cop stash.
Yeah, and like no one has a great stash in this movie. They're all just kind of like, yeah, you achieved that stash, but it doesn't look good on you.
No. And another thing, part of this movie was inspired by cops. They were going to a buddy's wedding, and a couple of them were tripping out the whole
As you
trip.
do on a 4-day-long car trip.
Yeah. And they mentioned that they got away with, like, the cops didn't arrest them, they got pulled over a couple times, but they thought it would be funny. What if the cops were in on the jokes?
Which, granted, I like the idea of a lot of cops having a sense of humor. Granted, the sense of humor in this movie, definitely over the top, but I appreciate the notion and the original thought.
Oh, yeah. And so outside of the creation of, or outside of Super Troopers, I did not realize how many movies of theirs I'm somewhat familiar with.
They've done a lot.
I didn't know Puddle Cruiser, which apparently is a cult classic. But there's another movie they mentioned called Club Dread.
Yes.
Have not seen that one yet. The Dukes of Hazzard.
Of course this is the same people as Dukes of Hazzard.
It's not really, though, because Jay talked about it in a couple interviews that they kept bringing him scripts of Dukes of Hazzard, like, hey, do you want to do this? And he's like, I'll read it, but I don't really want to do it. And he read it and he's like, nah, it's not very good. And so they sent him another script afterwards, and they're like, he's like, it's better, but I still don't want to do it. Third time, here's it is, like, I'll read it, but I am not doing this. And then they sent him like a fourth one, and he's like, okay, sure, I'll do it. And everyone of Broken Lizard has a guest appearance in it.
Yeah.
But they also did Beer Fest.
Yeah.
The Slam and Salmon, which I have not seen all of yet, but from what I've seen, I loved it.
I have not seen that one.
It's about a boxer who retires and sets up a seafood restaurant.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
That sounds like...
God, I can't remember. I think they're having like this, like a big sale kind of thing. Like,
oh, gotcha.
Trying to keep the business alive still.
Yeah, one of those like save the small town business
Exactly.
stories. Okay.
And then, as most people know, Super Troopers 2.
Of course, a Super Troopers 2.
Yeah.
And honestly, the show was also potentially going to get a TV show, which I could see. I could see this show having, or this movie being turned into a TV show. That has not happened yet, but I also don't think it's been completely taken off the table from what I've read.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see it working as a TV show, similar to Reno 911.
I was thinking more along the lines of Cops.
Yeah, well, yeah, but more staged, I would say. I can't see it as being...
Oh, no, it cannot be real life whatsoever.
Yeah.
In fact, they tried to do some of this stuff real life, and they got in trouble for speeding a couple times by filming this. So, yeah, no.
Yeah.
But...
All right.
It does have a good formula.
Yeah. Meow. On to the next portion.
Yes.
So... before we get into the movie itself, let's give just a basic synopsis of it.
Yeah.
Basically, it's these Vermont troopers, or
there's
highway patrol, who are gonna have their station closed down unless they perform better, and they're a bunch of dickheads.
They are a bunch of dickheads. In fact, one of the issues that came up was they were getting their budget cut, and during the review, the subject of how many people they had even bothered to give a ticket to in the last quarter came up, and one of the police officers is shown like with a dummy in his car in a creek fishing, so he's not even like trying. That's the level of like zero effort that's going on here.
Yes.
Which is fun. But the other thing that I like about this movie, because they could have done just the state troopers, and they could have made a movie out of it. But instead, there's also the city cops, who are from the town closest to where they're located. And so now there's a rivalry between the state troopers and the city cops. And honestly, the city cops are just as dumb as the state troopers, but they have like two competent people among all of them, and that's keeping them going, really. Well,
and that's another thing they put, is that the Highway Patrol, they're all competent.
They could have been very good highway patrolmen.
They just don't.
No, they're too busy dicking around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
With the exception of one of them, who I think maybe needs to go see someone.
Farva?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Permanently suspended is a good position for him.
Yeah, he's
the off-the-chain crazy one, which normally is a burden on the script, and it's usually put in to, like, add a layer of extra, but they managed to use his character rather cleverly throughout the plot, and so while I hate him, he is a necessary hate.
He's very much the stereotypical cop personality.
Yeah, he is a cartoon cop written by someone who doesn't like cops.
Yeah.
Brought to life, while all the other ones are just kind of dude bros with nothing better to do, and no fear of losing their jobs until right now.
Yeah, and the chief of... What do you call it?
I think he's called a constable.
Constable?
But I'm not sure.
Okay. So,
head state trooper dude.
Yes, head state trooper dude. He's the only one who actually seems like he really cares. Like, we find out later that he did dickhead stuff when he was a kid.
Yeah, and
or when he was a recruit, but...
And I think that's part of the reason why he lets it slide, is you can definitely tell that he likes all of the guys in his troop. And so, yeah, he'd wish they would do better, but, like, he remembers harassing his fellow troopers. He remembers pulling people over and pretending to do games with them. And so he kind of gives the vibe of him wanting them to be young and enjoy their youth in a way, even though these are all full-grown adult-ass men who have real jobs to do. He
remembers the meowy old times.
Oh, that was a stretch.
That was a stretch, but I am counting it.
Alright.
I will get 10. So yeah, the movie starts off with
arguably my favorite scene of the whole thing.
Yeah, This is the scene that has stuck with me regardless.
And there's a reason why.
So there's
a rumor that's fairly accepted that this upcoming scene is based off of a real event.
Well, I mean, they got pulled over.
No. The eating of the drugs bit.
Oh, okay.
So the show starts up with a bunch of what appear to be high school kids who are all in a car. They have an absorbent amount of different drugs to entertain them on their way up to theoretically go to Canada for hookers and gambling and more drugs and alcohol. And so they are all high on pot. And as they're driving up, they see the trooper car behind them. They all panic because they're not thinking straight and make the poor kid in the back seat eat like $100 worth of pot.
Yep. A pot and mushrooms.
And then an entire bag of mushrooms. And this isn't even like a few mushrooms. Like, this was a whole bag of mushrooms. And then something else that I didn't catch what they handed him. But they didn't. He refused to eat the last one. So they threw the last one out the window.
Yeah.
But he did manage to eat an entire bag of pot and then an entire bag of mushrooms, which is honestly where he should have drawn the line.
Yep. And so the troopers are up on them. They're like, pull over. And they're like, they pull over, like, gonna act cool.
Yeah.
And we already are over. Pull over. I don't know what you want me to do.
We can't pull over any farther. They're panicking. It is hilarious. They eventually get them on a littering thing for the thing they threw out the window.
Well, okay, there's a little bit more to it because the cops come up, license registration.
Definitely fucking with them.
Get back in their car, speed off away, and they're like, oh shit, yes, we got away with this.
Them. And then they're talking big about how they weren't going to take this anyway. They were totally going to get off. And
I would pull out my gun and be like, and then you hear whoop behind them, and the cops come back up. License and registration, please.
At this point, they tell them to pull over again too. They're still parked on the side of the road.
Yeah.
So they're now double panicking. The guy in the back, according to the movie, at this point is starting to really panic because he has eaten way more than he should have.
Dude, I'm freaking out, man.
And that part of the scene was what I had found in research was supposed to have been based off of a real situation where a bunch of high school kids did actually do this, and this was their solution instead of, like, I don't know, hiding it under the seat or literally any other option. Yeah. I don't know, put it anywhere else. No, some kid in the back did eat all of it, and then unlike the show where nothing really happens, they get put in the cop car and then we don't see these kids again until the end.
Yeah.
Those kids actually went to jail, and one kid tripped for 2 days straight, in theory. And of course, all of them are taking blame. It was a whole mess, but that was part of the inspiration for the beginning of it, which I think is why the beginning scene works so well, is because, it's really, really fucking dumb. It is believable dumb. I knew dumb kids like this in high school and college who would have that would have been their response.
Yeah, no,
and not thought a thing of it.
Even with the stupid cop antics, if the cop was in on the joke, it seems like something they would do.
Oh, for sure.
Because they get them on the littering charge, and as punishment, they're going to make them smoke the entire bag of weed.
Oh, so
and
bad.
As they're doing this, a car comes flying by them, and they throw the kids in the back of the car, and they drive off after them.
Yeah, and we don't really see what happens to the kids after that, which I feel bad for these kids.
We have a little bit.
We do know a little bit of what happened.
They chase the guy into a bar.
Yep.
The guy turns out to be one of their other officers.
Wearing a wig.
Wearing shorts, I think, too.
I think they were jorts.
Jorts. And so throwing them off, he's like, "Hey, you guys didn't catch me too fast for you. You're buying me shots."
Yep.
Rookie
pays.
Yes. And so then they decide, and Favre was on the line. "Did you catch him? Hey, do you need backup? I'll come. Do you need backup?"
Oh, Favre. Favre at this point in the movie has been constricted to office and radio work, and throughout the whole movie they don't really show you. They just say that Favre got in trouble for a school bus incident, and then they proceed not to tell you anything about it, which I think is actually brilliant, because the more you learn about Favre, the more insane in your head the thing he did is, which works really, really well. And then we are rewarded at the end of the movie. If you sit around long enough, you do get to see the dash cam footage, theoretically, of the school bus incident.
Yep. And so the kids are back in the car. One of them's freaking out.
I think at this point, all of them are freaking out. One more than the others, though.
Yeah. And so they hear gunshots inside.
Oh, yeah, because they don't know this is a gag yet.
Yeah, and so the guy comes out and he pretends to steal the cop car.
Pretending to steal a cop car.
While they're back there, one of the kids is licking the window. This snozberries taste like snozberries.
Yes.
Fun fact, that goofy-looking guy.
Yep.
I just didn't realize.
You recognize him now?
No, I don't know him from anything else, but I was pulling up because I know he was used on a inspirational image of like you can get like just be yourself and you'll find happiness. I didn't know they got divorced.
Well, I mean, it's Hollywood. Everyone gets divorced at least once.
He was married to Christina Hendricks.
I mean, good for him.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's one of the fun things about Super Troopers is everyone in this movie is somebody.
Yeah.
They're just not a super big name somebody, which is fun because a lot of these faces, I was like, that person looks kind of familiar, but like, I don't know them, so it's not a big deal. They end up being like a background or a side character in other TV shows, other background characters in movies. So it's kind of a fun, like, guess who that person turned out to be. If you've already seen this, it's a fun game to play.
Oh, yeah. And so after this, we cut to... I think we actually get the titles at this point.
We do. We finally get the titles for the movie.
And so now they're at a diner that I learned was shot in New York and is since closed.
It is, but I kind of like the diner. I had written down what the diner was called. It was M's Cozy Corner. Yeah.
And so we get a mustache shot.
We do.
I unfortunately don't have the special edition DVD of this. I just have the regular one. Which I kind of wish we were in more contact with people at work because I would have bugged Elliot for it. Oh. Because he told me the commentary of this is great because like a lot of the shots were just like inside jokes.
That would make a lot of sense.
Jay was dared that he couldn't put like 3 mustache shots in a movie.
Yeah, you can in this movie.
And that's exactly why he did these shots was that. And then from there, there's like 3, 2, 1, do it. Nice. And then they chug maple syrup.
Which Okay, and the maple syrup chugging thing, I love props and how movies are made. And so watching them chug maple syrup, in my mind, as someone who's used to seeing movies made, I went, oh, that's definitely like prop liquid. Because there's always the gag of like chugging a thing of hot sauce, it's ketchup, and then the newbie has to drink real hot sauce. Well, kinda. They kinda chug not syrup.
They originally shot it with what they called heavy iced tea.
Yeah, just really syrupy iced tea.
And they said you could tell it wasn't maple syrup.
And some of the shots are still in the movie, so you can see in some of like farther away shots, it's like, it's a little off.
Yeah.
It's iced tea. But they wanted that nice glugging effect. And there's only really one liquid that glugs like that.
Maple syrup.
Fake maple syrup made out of corn syrup.
No, it was actually maple syrup. I think it was just watered down, but they use real maple syrup.
No, I'm making a gag that most maple syrup isn't real maple syrup.
Yeah, I bought the wrong maple syrup. I don't.
It's okay. I buy the sugar-free one.
It's gross.
Yes, it is.
But anywho, Jay drunk 2 bottles.
Yep. Good on him.
And the other guy, he made drink 3. They couldn't throw. They immediately tried to throw it up, but it's too heavy to throw up.
Nope, that's in there. That's part of your body now.
So what they ended up doing is they went back to Jay's trailer, turned off the lights, and shivered for 45 minutes.
Oh, the sugar high and low would have been intense.
Oh yeah, they said it was awful. And then
it does sound awful.
Also later in the day, Jay was off to the bathroom, and the other guy's like, "Hey, have you used the bathroom yet?" He's like, "No." Good luck.
Oh, yeah, coming out would
It's
be
a
bad.
laxative.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not. That wouldn't be pretty. However, the effect was good.
It was.
The scene was solid. It's a solid scene.
It's why the opening fits so well, because then we have the redheaded cop. Is he a redhead?
I don't remember. Maybe?
I'm not good with hair colors.
I think it's more blonde than red.
Okay. Maybe some red undertone or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Anywho, so he comes in. We see him sit next to another cop, and then we realize, like, look, she's like, "I'd like maple syrup with these," and she's like, "I'm sorry, doll."
That's all. They drank all of it.
And so this is where the part where we realize that we learn that the cops and the
State troopers
aren't super fans of each other. They're rival. There's a rivalry.
There's a rivalry, but I like this scene because it sets up not just the rivalry, but also the potential / toad around love at the beginning of the movie. I guess I really shouldn't say toad around, because they do like each other. It's more of insatiable flirting for majority of the movie.
It's forbidden love.
Forbidden Romeo and Juliet, but with idiots. More idiots.
The forbidden maple syrup.
The forbidden maple syrup love.
Yeah.
And the scene's also really good because it shows that both of them are still idiots, but they're sweet idiots to each other.
Yeah, and the cops are bigger, they're more childish, I'll say.
They are. I will say that we don't see we see a lot of the lady cop a lot, and we see a good bit of their captain. We don't see the individual cops a ton, so you're kind of left to fill in their personalities yourself. Brian filled them in as kind of like boring, stereotypical cops. Yeah. I filled them in as the exact same people as the state troopers, just in blue. Yeah, blue and less pranks. Slightly less pranks. Little more sexism. Just a lot. Yeah. Yeah, especially that one. Yeah. That was... that's one of this... yeah, it's later on. I'll talk about it later. Get there. And so at this point we realize, oh shit, they're not just in trouble because the chief comes in and breaks them up. They go back to their headquarters and say, hey, quit this shit. We gotta actually focus. We gotta do our jobs. You have to do your job. And it's one of those situations where you kind of got the vibe of like, can you do your job twice and that will save our entire existence? And the answer ended up being nope. Nope, they can't. Nope. And so from this, we also learned that they're just small town bored cops. They are. They are. What comes next? I can't remember. Do they find the Winnebago? Next is the Winnebago scene. Okay, so there's this whole Winnebago scene where... I love the Winnebago scene. Especially because I like fake true crime, and I like reenacted true crime, and this is like the worst version of all of it. Everything that happens from this point on is like the wrong answer.
Mm-hmm. And so there's this, they find a dead body.
And I think they say dead hooker, but like they have no proof of that.
Yeah.
But anyway, they find a dead woman in a Winnebago. I will grant them this. Most comedy movies don't, if there is a death, it's usually like someone's legs sticking out of a box sort of situation. They full on show a dead lady. Yeah. There's blood and she's dead.
Well, the cops have the scene covered, the troopers come in and they start...
just step on everything. The thing that does kill me though, because this also kind of proves that the cops are also just dumb-ass idiots as well, is there's a whole pig in the back of this teeny tiny Winnebago. Yeah. It's separated by a few tiny planks of cardboard fake wood. And no one noticed the pig until just now?
Never.
No. Yeah, like why wouldn't you like at least open the door, make sure there's not another dead person in there? Nah.
Yep. And so they're arguing of who's going to get the case, whose jurisdiction it is. And at that point, the pig comes out, and they're outside the Winnebago.
The pig like just is tearing up the Winnebago, and they're throwing people in to fight the pig.
And then they start fighting each other.
You know, like you do. And of course, because this is how the movie's going, state troopers lose. They have to hand over on top of they have to... The
highway patrol loses.
The highway patrol loses to the city cops. Both in the fist fight, which I think is the main portion of what they lose. And then they have to start trading off people. And then they just decide, this isn't worth it, you guys can have it.
Yeah. And then they get back, and their chief is hella pissed because he's like, you gave over this murder case to them.
Our one murder case on a highway, like, how often does that happen?
Oh.
Especially to them. Like, I'm sure
in real life, a lot. The highways are the killing fields of America.
True. But in this world, murder isn't often in the Super Trooper world. No. And then on top of murder not being an often thing, murder that's definitely in their jurisdiction and not like a local cop or even FBI. Yeah, I can see why their constable guy was mad.
Oh yeah, they're small town cops. They're idiots.
This was their one big break.
They are the hot dog squad.
They are the hot dog squad.
For those of you who don't know, the hot dog squad is the biggest bunch of dipshits. They're the ones who are tasked with trying to find BTK. And they called themselves the hot dog squad.
They named themselves the hot dog squad.
It is so stupid.
They're a fantastic thing to research if you get a chance to. They're kind of like real life versions of this movie.
Yes.
Which is terrifying, but also hilarious. And so the other thing that this movie does have going for it is there is kind of a murder mystery going on throughout the whole movie. Yeah,
they find a tattoo on the leg of the dead stripper hooker.
We're not really gonna...
sex worker. Presumed sex worker.
We don't even know who this woman is. We're not going to describe the tattoo in a great bunch of detail.
It's a monkey with a banana.
An explicit-looking monkey with a banana.
Yes, based off, one of them says, an Iranian anime ripoff.
Which I was not aware was a thing.
I don't know if it's a thing or not.
I didn't Google it. I left that perfectly untouched.
Yeah,
So maybe, probably not, but the idea is funny. Because that means that they also know what anime is.
Yeah, or at least one of them
At least one of them is a nerd.
One of them is a weeb.
One of them is a weeb.
And so, I mean, there's a lot of weird, like, little things that happen in between. Because I almost forget that, yes, this is kind of the big thing of the movie.
Yeah, this is supposed to be the, like, driving plot of the movie. And it kind of does take a side rail to their shenanigans, but... that kind of works in this instance.
Yeah, because the next scene is the German sex couple.
I believe.
Next.
I think yes, and also kind of simultaneously we get told that the governor's coming.
Oh, sorry, no, it cuts to them at the baseball game.
It does cut to them at the baseball game, where we kind of. I like the baseball game because it does kind of normalize them a little bit. It shows that they do kind of know how to behave outside of the trooper station.
But they're still dickheads to each other.
They're still dickheads to each other, but they're at least not, like, ruining the other parent's t-ball game.
Yeah.
Or, like, ruining the kid's t-ball game too much. And granted, one of them is even coaching the t-ball game for his kind of son. I couldn't really... He kept calling him his son, but...
He wasn't brown enough.
No, not just that. It was one of those things where it was kind of implied that maybe this is his girlfriend's boy, and like he's just trying to take over that parental figure.
And I would argue...
It was hard to say.
I would say he is more so the main character than most of the cast.
Yeah.
Because there's a heavy emphasis on him and his girlfriend who runs the head shop in town.
Which I think is hilarious.
Yes. Which they're into super kinky sex that we find. They're kinky.
They are funny.
I do like them. And so, God, what... I've only seen this movie once, so I get a little mixed up on how things... No, I've seen it a couple times for the podcast, but...
Well, one of the things
really
that is a fun thing to catch while you're watching the baseball scene, because granted, not a lot plot-wise really happens. We just get a little bit of character development and a little bit more stress put on the situation.
And more flirtation between the trooper and the police officer.
So speaking of police officer and trooper, there's a scene where she takes her ice cream cone and beats him over the head with it. Mm-hmm. Well, as a lot of you know, ice melts very quickly, and so normally prop ice cream is replaced with something else. Well, part of them getting ready to shoot that scene was she was supposed to practice with a chunk of ice. And then they were going to replace it with soft, fluffy ice, which is harder to make and also melts a lot faster for the last take, which was going to be the actual take. Unfortunately, she missed a lot, so he got hit in the head with a chunk of ice a couple of times.
Ooh. Yeah.
I couldn't find out which was the actual version that made the final cut. But the actor did say that it hurt.
I'm hoping it's the one because he actually looked like he was hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think next is that German couple.
Oh, the German couple who somehow managed to worm their way into the movie in a more long-term situation. Which
I think is clever writing too, because it's not like one of those sketch movies where like, oh, this scene doesn't really translate. Like all the scenes actually work together.
And all of the characters, even though they are all, for the most part, side background characters, with a couple of special appearances by certain people's parents, the characters, while normally you'd be like, all right, scene done, next gag, let's go, those characters are all part of this small town, so they come back around as background characters, they come back around later for other gags, which is, I kind of like.
Yeah. And, I mean, at this point, we actually learned that, no, it's not Jay's. No, I can't remember which one. One of them has their kids with them.
Yes.
And he, I think it's Jay. Jay's character has his kid with him.
Yeah.
And they pull them over. He's like running the license plate.
12-year-old boy sitting in the back of a cop car.
No, sitting in the front on his lap.
They moved him to the front. He was in the back.
Oh, right. He was in the back. And then they arrest
And then they have to move him to the front because now they've got people in the back.
Yeah, because they arrest the German couple.
They pull over a German couple who at first, you kind of assume that this is a fake German accent, because it's laid on real thick.
Yeah.
But since they never drop the accent, and they leave it as thick as that for the whole movie, I'm going to say actual German portrayal of people. Not a good portrayal, but like, this is what...
They are voyeurs.
They are experimental folk.
Voyeurs.
Yeah.
We also learned the other cop's hella lonely. So
lonely that he's very desperate, and this couple is
laying it on thick.
They're down for anything.
They're laying it on like maple syrup.
Oh yes. And the scene was starting to get really awkward. Brian was tuning out until the husband who's still in the car, the German husband who's still in the car, pulls out a feather while the two highway patrolmen are talking about, oh, this car's stolen, we have to bring them in. You can't have your fun and let them go. He pulls out this giant-ass blue ostrich feather and starts tickling his butt. It's so, like, not even, like, reaching over, just, like, from the car, like a child.
Hey. Hey, cutie.
Hey. It's so funny that even Brian laughed.
And so
they are brought into the station, which ends up working out because now they're in the station, but like clearly no one's watching anything at the station, so they're just kind of left free and then later brought over to the one couple's house for shits and giggles and fun times.
Yeah. And then also at this point, the plot thickens.
The plot thickens.
Now they pull over a semi-truck.
A semi-truck. 18-wheeler, if you will.
And there's a guy in it. He's like, hey, I'm sorry. I missed the weigh-in station.
And at this point, they're trying to pull people over because, they gotta at least do something to prove that they're useful. And so like, well, he missed the weigh-in station. All right, we'll go pull him over. Mm-hmm. And this part is funny because, like, also, where did this guy just ran down the highway on foot? Anyway.
Yeah, because he doesn't steal their car either.
No, it's just parked over there.
Yeah. I think they found the car.
But it wasn't that far down the street.
No.
But anyway, so they pull over this semi for not going to the weigh-in, which to a normal cop, I think, is either a routine thing or a red flag for smuggling. Mm-hmm. These guys know they're supposed to check.
Not necessarily smuggling, just he's not following the laws.
Yeah.
There's a weigh-in station that he has to go to, and he doesn't.
Yeah. And so while he's not, he's trying to be cooperative, it seems like. He's handing over his license, his registration, he's talking to him. He seems pretty friendly. He opens up the back, he's like, yeah, I'm just carrying soap. No big deal. Go, hop up in there, look around. And These two dumbasses actually hop into the 18-wheeler's back part.
And they ask him, do you have a flashlight? He's like, yeah, I think I left it in the cab.
It closes the door.
Yep.
And so they're now locked inside the semi for an undisclosed amount of time, in which time this man manages to make his escape, but they don't lose the cop car.
Nope. The other ones let them out, but we learned that this guy also had the monkey tattoo.
No, he was moving pot with the monkey sticker on it.
Oh, right. Right, okay, he doesn't have the monkey tattoo.
No. And so this is the part where they're like, well, maybe this is a thing. This is a lot of pot that we caught. Mm-hmm. Maybe the two are connected, but
maybe this will also save us.
Yeah, like, oh, this is our big bust. We got it. And nope.
Nope.
They managed to fuck it up again.
As they always do.
Surprise.
But we also find out that they actually are trying to cooperate with the cops.
Yeah, at this point, they've decided that this is actually a pretty serious problem. We should do something about it.
And we also kind of find out how sexist the cops are, because one of them tells the female cop that she needs to
be like his wife.
And if she was his wife, he would put her in her place.
He's lucky she didn't arrest him. She's a cop. Don't say that.
She has the sass to hold up to them, I'll say.
I will say, like, good on her for trying to stick it out and, like, be the cop that she always wanted to be. But, man, that sucks.
And Heartthrob Cop is there to lay it on thick again.
Oh, he brings in an empty folder just to talk to her. How sweet.
Yeah. Well, no, he doesn't have the empty folder at that point.
No, but we're getting to that level of charm.
Yeah. He's just sitting there waiting for the chiefs to finish talking.
Yep. And anyway, the two of them, their romance ends up being somewhat useful. Mm-hmm. She's sick of her coworker's shenanigans, and he really wants to keep his job. So if they work together, theoretically, that would bring enough money to keep both organizations going.
Yeah.
And so they kind of make a pact at this point.
That they'll work together.
They'll help each other out.
Because they find more marijuana in the Winnebago. Because
they were gonna go in there for sexy times. And
yes.
And this is the part that really got me, was clearly, and this is the part where this is actually clever writing,
mm-hmm.
because it's not like the marijuana was cleverly hidden. The bed wasn't a real bed. It was a piece of cardboard holding up with a blanket over top of it, like you would for a stage performance. A normal cop investigation would have found this marijuana.
But remember, this is the Vermont Hot Dog Squad.
This is the Hot Dog Squad real hard, which is part of the genius of this writing. Because while all of the jokes are going, while this weird love triangle is going, while this weird plot with the one guy and his kind of son and girlfriend, and he doesn't want to move, but he might have to move, and what happens to his life then, we still have a murder drug plot going on where they've now found more drugs, and it's kind of cleverly written. Because it all does tie back perfectly.
And before this, there was another part going on, too, where we learned that Farva doesn't like Rabbit, the rookie.
No.
And
I think part of it sounds like started because in the this specific state trooper office, it's common to harass the rookie, which especially for the time period this movie's supposed to be kind of sort of set in, isn't too far-fetched. And most of the other guys, the pranks that they pull on the newbie, while not my cup of tea, aren't the end of the world.
No.
Except for Farva, who takes it all too far.
Oh, Farva's
But
Farva's a dipshit when it comes to pranks.
Yeah, and so it kind of sounds like Farva originally got the idea like, oh, this is the new guy, we prank the new guy, and then the new guy got to go out and he had to sit.
Because we also get to a point where we learn that the new guy is speeding around at night to fuck with them.
Yes.
Dressed in costume.
He's messing with them pretty good.
Farva happens to catch him while the other dude is jerking it to a billboard with his
it's so stupid,
with his hand going at
56 miles
56
per hour
while autoerotic asphyxiation.
It's so stupid, but it is funny. And it does kind of prove that Farva wants to be a real cop so badly that he will pull someone who is speeding over, even though he is not in a cop car, he is not wearing his uniform, and he is, for all intents and purposes, off duty.
And this is good, right? This is a good part of it, too, because that's how Farva gets back on the field.
Yeah.
And Rookie doesn't get fired. They're just we're Rookie, disappointed in you.
Rookie, why would you pull this stunt? Because I think if Rookie had done it as, like, a proper joke, it would have been one thing. But it's kind of implied a little bit that, like, well, they've impounded all these really fast, exotic cars. Rookie just wants to take him for a spin, and that's where the problem was.
Yeah.
Which I can see why Farva's mad. Well,
Farva's just trying to get his position back. And while they're being chewed out, Lovestruck patrolman comes in, and he's like, hey, I found this in the Winnebago. I snuck in. I did all this. No one believes he did that.
No,
but they're like,
they all
okay,
know.
Fine. We'll do it.
We'll try.
We'll take the Winnebago to this to the mayor herself and say, hey, we found more in here.
They're gonna kidnap the Winnebago from the police force to show it to the governor, who's coming to have a meeting and a presentation with the mayor. Who, if they can impress these two people, will give them the funding to keep their station open. And that's what they think, not what is actually, like, based in any... Like, they just told themselves this.
Yep.
No one told them this was a thing that they could do.
Yeah.
They made this up themselves.
And another thing because their whole plan for this just kind of is stupid, too, because there's a...
Yeah.
They use a guy fucking a bear.
One of the officers dresses up in a kind of like how, like, those outfits where you want to be a unicorn for Halloween and one person's the front and one person's the back. Only there's no front. It's just limp bear.
Limp bear.
And so he's somehow he either already had this Halloween costume or they made it in one night. I like to think he already had it.
Yeah.
And then with a tape recorder in the woods, pretends to fuck a bear. So much so that 20 different individuals, they don't even call on themselves. 20 different people are upset by this and call the cops. Which means that the last two cops who are guarding the Winnebago have to go investigate a bear fucker. And also don't want to go anywhere near him, so they stand on the edge of the woods yelling at him for a very long time.
Finally telling him that they're coming in, and then he starts running away. Yes. They get the Winnebago out. Farva's at the party. He's going to get plastered.
He doesn't just get plastered. I think they show him puking 3 different times.
Yeah, it's an open bar.
It's open bar, but the only thing he seems to be drinking seems to be like Michelin Light.
Yeah.
It's not a good multi-beard chugging beer.
But this is middle of Vermont.
Yeah, no, like, it's on point.
Yeah.
But...
and then the Winnebago has nothing in it.
Nope. They finally get all the way there. They're about ready to bust in the doors and save it. And there's a sign in the duffel bag saying, haha, gotcha, pretty much.
Yep. It's the cops that get away with it.
Yep.
And we find out that shit's not going to go well for them. No. We also realize that Farva's more of a pain in the ass than we thought.
Farva's more of a dick than
because
yeah.
Jay is not super happy working with him again.
Yeah, they get reshuffled in one last ditch effort
he takes Rookie's place because Rookie was with Jay.
And so
they try playing a scene before where he does, instead of doing meow, where it's saying meow 10 times.
He ups his own ante.
He says,
"Oh, I want to play one of the games like you guys do." He wants to be part of the group, and no one's wanting to be friendly to him.
Yeah.
Bad timing, dude. Like, you're getting shut down. Feel the situation out. But also be like, everyone is and has continued to just be an asshole to him.
Well, he's also kind of an asshole too, because instead of saying meow,
just saying, he walks up to what ends up being one of the writer's actual parents and says, "Well, for $20, I'd say
chicken fucker,"
to the next person we pull over, which happens to be these two nice middle-aged looking standard suburban people. And the parents knew he was going to say something explicit to them, but they didn't tell them what. So their reaction is the actual reaction.
"Hey, how's it going? Chicken fucker."
Yes.
And he's not even like...
No, he's like very aggressive. Like
he's very couth with it.
Yeah, the meowing was subtle enough that you kind of missed the meowing until it was brought to your attention. This was not subtle. He just screams it at them.
Yeah. So everything's being shut down.
Yep, it's into times.
Well, we also learn that Farva is leaving them to become a cop.
Yep, he jumped ship.
Oh no, there's another scene before that, because Farva, they go to a burger joint.
Oh yeah, it's like a drive-through sort of situation, similar to like Burger King-esque, but not that big a chain.
Yeah, and they were talking that they discovered the burger joint kid on the streets of Hollywood. Like, I think he said he was just out smoking and just talking to himself, and he's like, "Hey,
you want to be in a movie?"
He's like, "I think I got a role for you." And
the kid's perfect too. He embodies the I work late nights at a burger joint.
Mm-hmm. And so that whole scene came from McDonald's back in the 90s badgering people.
Oh yeah.
For supersizing. Supersizing now?
I remember that. Yeah, I do remember this was a point where, just like, and McDonald's still does this to an extent, where everything's max something. McDonald's also wanted you to supersize things for 50 cents, but they wanted you to specifically call it supersizing, which is now so ingrained that that's what we call it.
And I think they're trying to get away from it now because the documentary Supersize Me.
Yeah, that too. But, like, on top of them already increasing the size of literally everything that they make, they wanted you to pay, like, it was like 25 cents for a large instead of the medium that it normally came with. And they still do this. Like, you can still, like, I think all fast food places probably do this.
Movie theaters do it. Like, I'll get a small drink, and they'll be like, for 50 cents more, you can get a large. And I'm like,
how could I possibly drink that much soda?
Yeah, no, I'm like, I don't even finish this in the movie sitting.
Yeah, no, it's still very common. McDonald's pushed it really hard, but McDonald's also, I remember this being kind of a deal where you couldn't just say, yeah, like, they wouldn't ever say, like, do you want to make that a large for 50 cents? It was always, do you want to supersize that for 50 cents? Kind of like how, and this is one of the jokes that could have dated itself, because, yeah, that was a very 90s McDonald's problem, and now not so much. Like, we've all just kind of accepted it / moved on.
Yeah.
But, boy howdy, try order a large from Starbucks. You can't. It only comes in tall, venti, and grande, which is all same word. It's all large.
Yeah,
So, like, the complaint is still there, thus the joke's still hilarious.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the genius of this writing is, like, yeah, at the time this was pinpointed towards something, but it was also vague enough that, like, I'm still heated about grande freaking size Starbucks.
Yeah.
Just call it a large.
Yep. And, yeah, I don't even know the last time I was out of Starbucks. I think I was just riding with Erica and Philip one day.
I know Erica likes a Starbucks. My sister-in-law, one of her wedding gifts was a lot of money for Starbucks. We
stopped in because, that's right, they had to pick me up on their way into the office because when my car completely froze over that one winter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's when that was. But yeah, anywho. enough of our tangent and ranting.
Anyway.
The Germans actually play a role again.
Yes.
The German guy comes in. They're showing him cartoons, and he's talking about like how it connects to the drug ring and whatnot.
And this is the part that I thought was actually, again, more smart writing. Because, A, they could have had anybody. But instead they bring the German guy out of his cell, the German couple out of their cell to watch everyone high off their butt.
Because who else is going to know about kinky shit other than the weeb?
This is true. They're all watching it, but they're all just kind of enjoying it and being high and giggling, where the German guy is like actually analyzing it, going, oh no, this is really clever writing, like, oh, this is tying into that, and this is proving that so-and-so did this.
Yep.
None of them are listening.
Nope.
They could have closed the case right there if anyone had been paying attention.
And they go out for a night on the town.
They do, and
we learn that the chief is just one of them.
He is just another bro. He is egging somebody's house. The city constable's house. He goes to like confront him / drunk fight him. He's not home, so now he's just like throwing potted plants off the deck. He's like smearing stuff on the windows, throwing eggs at things.
Yeah, just
being a child.
Being dickheads, all of them. Farva is getting into fights with restaurant workers. It's a good time. Yep. And then Farva is brought to the police, and that's how he's brought in. And so we also find out that chick cop's been two-timing him the whole time, but she actually fell in love with him.
Yeah, now she truly loves him. It's that gag.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to remember, how did they get to the point that they realize that the cops are in on the...
So this is the part where Lady Cop calls in and is like, yeah, I'm sorry you guys got sold out, but I do actually like him, and I hate my coworkers. So I'm going to lead you in on a secret. Meet me at this location at this time.
Okay, that's right. Again, I'm not super familiar with this movie. I've seen it like 3 times for this podcast, and I didn't write down the timeline of events.
It's okay. Like, for the most part, the only thing that needs any timeline whatsoever is the murder drug plot, which... Yeah. There's only 4 major plot points, too, so the rest of it... Yeah, it's kind of important in what order, but that's kind of the beauty of this, is kind of like how Monty Python, there is an order, but you can watch it in bits. Yeah. And it still makes sense and it's still fun.
Because, yeah, and even, I don't know, it's kind of weird because, like, this ending portion, it happens so quickly, too.
It does. It wraps up really freaking fast.
Because Farva, we also learn, is being left out of the cop circle, even though he's now a cop.
Which is kind of funny because part of the reason you feel like you do feel sorry for him throughout the movie. And so part of the reason you feel like he joined the cops is because he thought that, like, finally he'd be taken seriously.
He'd be one of the boys.
Yeah, he just wanted to be part of the gang. And the gang is like, no, fuck you.
Yeah. And so Meow, they get his car, and they open the trunk, and there's a blow-up doll.
There is a blow-up doll
with cop chick's name written on it.
Yeah, which not a smart move, but you know what? It's a move that he already made. Yeah. And so they're all huddled in the woods, and they're looking out, and they see a bunch of semi-truck drivers and the trailers, and there's lights, and there's cop cars, and they're like, oh, the cops are busting in on it. This is a drug. This is all the drugs. This is it. This is the big thing.
All the drugs.
All the drugs. It's all marijuana in this movie. But Farva not realizing that this is like, it's not a bust. Yeah. It's the cops are in on it. Just kind of storms off into the night to go help because like he must have just not heard his radio because he was out with the boys. That was, like, his thought process.
Well, that's what he was telling them. They purposely left him out.
Yeah, like, they left me out of this. They're so rude. So he's storming off. He's got his gun drawn. He's ready to help. And the rest of them are sitting there, and they're like, oh, no, this is what's going on. And so their one patrol car, they deck out like it's Crazy Town.
With the blow-up doll on top.
Blow-up doll on top. Streamers hanging off the sides. Lights are going. Sirens are going. And they put a rock on the pedal and away it goes to like crash the party. But surprise! It was all a Trojan horse, kind of. They're just in the back and they needed to get closer. Yeah. I don't really understand. I feel like the gag was supposed to be like, oh, the cops waste all their bullets trying to shoot down the car. And that's why they can get in close and have a full-on brawl. Yeah. But like at the same time, like, I don't know. I feel like surely one cop still had a few bullets left.
I mean, it's a movie. They're cops. They've always got bullets left.
This is the same movie that instead of having full body protection, they just had a metal cup.
Yes.
So, that's the kind of logic we're working with here.
You are one sick motherfucker. And in my day, we used blanks.
And the rookie got naked.
But yeah, so they bust the cops, but station's still getting shut down.
Station still got shut down.
And so
it cuts to like what should be like, oh, this is right before the credits, how everyone's doing sort of situation. And 2 of the state troopers have now turned into keg delivery guys.
Yep.
Which is kind of ironic and perfect.
It's like Ye Drunken Monk or something.
Yeah, it's some like ale. It's clearly just a piece of cardboard they stuck onto a truck.
I just realized I was in Denver about a year ago for a bachelor party, and one of the brewers was like Drunken Monk ale. I now get where their name came from.
And so, they're complaining that the one guy forgot the dolly. They got to hand carry this keg in. They keep dropping it. And when they get to the door, they ring the doorbell, and wouldn't you know it, it's the dumbass kids from the beginning of the movie.
Which is great too. Like, I mean, we talked about the writing in this movie and how everything ties back to it. Yeah. The movie ends how it begins.
It does.
So, surprise, they bring the keg in, they go through this whole thing, they're like, hey...
The high school boys are like, oh, you lost your jobs? Well, now they're being dicks to them, because, like, these are the cops who, put them through hell. Because
the other guy comes down the stairs, he's hugging the keg, and he looks up and he's like, oh, shit, and the other guy's like, no, they're not cops anymore. Oh, so here, bring in the keg.
Put it over there. Put it over there. Move it over here.
I think the feng shui says it should be where it should have.
He doesn't even call it feng shui. He goes, the feng shui.
Feng shui.
He doesn't even call it right. Yeah, for the flow of the room, it's got to go over there.
And so they're like, I'm sorry, but I don't have my dad's. My dad's not here right now.
I don't have my ID with me. Like, this clearly these are underage kids trying to buy a keg.
Yeah.
Not just buy a keg. They ordered a keg delivered to their clearly underage house party. Mm-hmm. They already know, the cops already know that they're underage because they've already pulled over once.
Yep.
And so they're like, oh, well, here's... What do you hand him, like a $1 bill?
Yeah, he's like, oh no, he hands him like a $5 and he's like, oh, here's my friend Washington. Wait, why don't you guys
Abraham Lincoln
split it? And then he splits the bill in half.
And he was trying to hand him low bills to like bribe him off, which like if you're gonna bribe somebody, like 5 isn't gonna cut it.
Yeah.
And then the true ending though ends up being that they've moved to being cops this whole time.
Yeah, it's like now this is the best part, and they pull up and
like Superman.
Freeze everyone.
And it turns out the entire gang switched sides, and they're all city cops.
They got hired as the cops. They merged, but all the cops got fired, minus Police Chick and Farva.
Minus Police Chick and kind of Farva, even though I think it's instated that Farva is now back behind the desk.
And then Snozzberry's dude pops out of the door, and he's like... Or like he says something.
Like busts out of a closet for no reason.
Covered in paint.
Was like, oh boy, are you okay, kid?
And then he's like, oh shit.
And of course then, cop music starts playing, credits start rolling.
They proceed to party with the kids.
Yeah, they all end up having a good time. And it's a solid ending to the movie.
And then we get to see why Farva was on desk duty.
The last straw, as they say.
He got taken down by a bus full of kids.
Yeah, he pulled over a bus of kids. Which, first off, don't pull over a bus full of kids if you're Farva. Have a real reason.
I mean, he might have. I mean, the driver might have been horrible, but...
This is true. But also, Farva's one of those characters where it was either he had a real reason... or Farva made up a reason, and there's no in between, and we will never know.
And he got taken down by children.
He got taken down by children who never really left the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, it's an odd little movie. For me, it's an odd little movie, just because, honestly, there's not a central character. No,
it's definitely very much around the entire troop, and even the police girl, who sometimes those characters end up being side characters. Mm-hmm. She ended up being one of the guys.
Yeah.
And so you kind of just lump her in with the entire main cast.
everyone likes having fun.
Yeah, everyone's a party animal in this world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. It's. I mean, part of it still feels a little dated. It's that comedy of the late 90s, 2000s, like early 2000s. Like it. I mean, it has the same vibe as like Euro Trip.
Yeah.
There are other movies like Beer Fest.
Yeah. Yeah. Very beer and bro centric movies.
Yeah, another movie it feels very similar to is like the Chevy Chase family vacation movies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's that kind of humor that doesn't necessarily sit well today.
No, it's a lot of shenanigans movies, and jokes, and it's a lot of dude humor. Mm-hmm. But with that said, part of the reason we picked this is because I know a lot of people who this is their kind of humor. This is like their go-to style of humor.
I cannot tell you how many conversations I've had with Elliot about movies, and comedy in specific, where this movie is brought up.
Yes.
Which is why I was really hoping to have the commentary, because he's talked about it so much for like the past 4 years I've known him.
Yeah.
And like it's just one of those movies where it's like, finally I'm going to sit down, I'm going to watch it, I'm going to learn as much as I can about it.
Yep.
And I didn't have that opportunity, which is a downer for me, but I don't know, I think it gets me to look at the movie from a subjective point. I don't know all the in-jokes. I just know the baselines of like what Elliot's told me, what I've heard in interviews with Jay.
Yep.
And I don't know. It's a different kind of review for me for this time.
Yeah, and granted, like, I can sit through these kinds of movies, despite what my parents say. They are not my first choice. However, I found myself enjoying this one.
Yeah.
Like, I'd seen it before, and I remember hating it, and I was prepared to hate it again. I didn't hate it. It was fine. I'm not gonna, like, watch it again anytime soon, but I'm also, like, if it's on TV, I'd probably leave it on.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, with this whole quarantine, social distancing thing, I watch this movie alone.
Yeah.
So, and that's the biggest thing for me, especially with this type of comedy, is it's meant to be watched with someone. It's not like where I'm watching in Bruges.
Yeah.
And I loved it because I thought it was funny by myself. But it's a different kind of humor. This
is very much a type of movie that's meant for a group to have playing as you do stuff with. It's very much like a guys' night-esque sort of movie. You get a group of guys over, you get a six case of beer, you get some chips, you watch this movie. Yeah. And yeah, I didn't get to watch it that way either. I honestly, I watched it with Brian, but let's be real, he was playing Smash Brothers because he must be the best. He's practicing so hard.
God, he's
practicing to take on one of our friends. And
who's also practicing, whereas I am not practicing at all.
Don't practice. You can join Erica and I.
I might be playing it a little bit later tonight with some other buddies, because apparently Dead by Daylight's having some server issues. So,
aw, too bad.
Yeah.
So while I did technically watch this with a friend who theoretically would have been the perfect person to enjoy this humor, as again, like, his favorite movie is Anchorman. So this should have been right up his alley, and it was. But he was distracted for 90% of the movie, and so most of it I think he missed.
And this is one of those comedies where you actually have to watch it because everything is so intertwined.
It is, and I think that's part of the reason why I liked this movie, is unlike a lot of dude bro humor movies, all of the characters make a reappearance for the most part, even a lot of the background characters. The murder plot is actually well written. Like, you don't see the twist coming until the end.
Nope.
Which is something that I don't say a lot, and I watch a lot of movies.
And especially you, because you watch murder mysteries all the time.
Yeah, like, could I have put that together if it was part of the options? Yeah, but because this was a stupid comedy, I hadn't considered there being a twist to this movie. Yeah. So it did surprise me, and I actually really liked it. Also, all the details are there. They're all ironed out. All the jokes are well thought through. And all of the slapstick humor, it's pretty solidly delivered.
And I think that ties back to just them planning everything out from the beginning and not ad-libbing as much.
Yeah, and so while this movie, I can understand why it critically didn't do super great when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
I think it got pretty mixed to mediocre reviews.
It didn't do critically, but it did financially very well.
Yeah.
Because I think they only had like a budget of like $2 million, which
it was
only
pretty
$2
low.
million.
Yeah.
But they made like 20-some million.
Yeah.
And also how they actually got financed, I forgot to bring this up earlier, is they were almost going to shelve the movie. Like Jay had gone back to the office and they were packing up. Broken Lizard was going to just cease to exist. They were splitting the troupe. And while he's doing that, he gets a call from a college friend who's like, hey, you're into movies, right? Or like, you're in the movie business, right? And he's like, yeah, kind of, I guess.
You could say that.
And she's like, well, my dad's wanting to, he's retiring. He's a banker. He's wanting to write screenplays. He's wondering if you would take a look at his. And he's like, sure, fine. Have him send it my way. I'll give it a look. He's like, this guy just wants me to read his screenplay. He just wants me to say it's good or not. And so, first off, the guy calls him and he's like, I want to see some of your stuff first before I send you mine. And he's like, oh, so this guy's auditioning me to read my screenplay. So he sends him Super Troopers, gets a call back a couple days later, and he's like, what are you guys doing with this? He's like, nothing. No one wants it. He's like, here's $1 million.
Yeah.
Do something with it. And that's how Super Troopers got made, is just, it almost didn't
Luck
get made.
of the draw.
Exactly.
Yeah, and honestly, like, you can tell that everyone had a good time on this movie. You can tell that, like, this movie was well thought out, and it was well practiced, and it was well executed. And I think that's why it's become a cult classic.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that they did very well is he mentioned that they wanted to make the cops human.
And they definitely are.
Because you can believe that that's a small town, bored cops. They don't have anything, they normally don't have anything better to do.
And honestly, like, all of their shenanigans, and this is my main complaint with, especially a lot of Will Ferrell's movies, which is, again, my husband's favorite genre of movie, minus cheesy romances. And normally the shenanigans that go down in those type of movies are so over the top that, like, yeah, maybe one or two people have ever done that. You might have heard of a dude who did that. Super Troopers, yeah, all of their stunts are stupid, but honestly, like, yeah, I knew dudes like this. I still know dudes like this. Should they be allowed to do this many shenanigans this close together? No, but, like, I definitely know dumbasses who are very similar to these characters.
One of my friends in Nebraska, he's got a Tiger King haircut going on.
Yeah.
And his beard and mustache is looking very much how I would imagine a panhandler.
Ah, good.
Big bushy mustache. And
got that don't touch my gold look.
Can't see his mouth at all look.
Perfect. That's filtering the food as it comes in. But,
so,
yeah.
Anywho, in the end, what would you actually rate this movie, Chris?
This is kind of a hard question. Because, again, this is not my normal taste in movie. Especially Super Trooper. But I like Super Trooper. I think it's close to a 7 or 8 out of 10 for me. Do I love this movie? No. But critically, this is a good movie. Yeah.
There's a reason it's become almost a classic at this point.
Yeah, it really has. And so I think this is a really perfect movie of, if you haven't seen this movie or you haven't seen this movie in a long time, this is a great time to rewatch this movie. It's not hard to get a hold of. It's hilarious. And yeah, I would probably rewatch this again with a group of friends.
I do agree with that as well. I would recommend watching with it as a group of friends.
Yep.
I'm not a super fan of it where, like, I would sit down and rewatch it by myself.
Yeah.
I might rewatch it for the commentary.
I would also like to know more about the commentary, because you don't need the inside jokes, but boy, it would be funny to know them.
Especially like the mustache shot. Like,
oh yeah, by the way, and I'm not going to tell you who, but one of the cops' mustache is fake for the whole movie.
Oh, you don't say. But no, I do recommend this movie just with a group.
Yeah, this is a great group movie, and especially right now, if you can't do the group thing, This is a really good one to Skype with friends while you have playing in the background. You all push play at the same time sort of situation. Because honestly, like, you don't need to pay attention to the plot. It's just fun to have the gags going in the background.
Yep.
Crack open a beer, make yourself some french fries, dip them in chili. Have some maple syrup. That's this kind of movie.
Chug maple syrup. So, anywho, this has been The Good, the Bad, and the Weird.
Thanks for listening.
Peace. Meow, chicken fuckers. That was 10.
Nice.